Hi everyone. So today we're going to look at the IXL assignment R5 on the Pythagorean theorem with word problems. Okay, so a quick reminder with the Pythagorean theorem is Pythagorean theorem works with right triangles. Okay, we have leg A, which is one of the sides of the triangle, leg B, which is another side of the triangle, and then we have our hypotenuse, which is the longest side, or C. Now you can always look for this right angle indicator, and the side that's directly across from that is going to be your longest side or your hypotenuse, okay? And the formula is going to say that side A, or A squared, plus side B, or B squared, is always going to be equal to side C squared, okay? And that's how you can also check if it's a right triangle. Again, it only works with right triangles. So we're going to look at some examples using the Pythagorean theorem with word problems. Now, with these word problems, it's always a good practice to draw a picture. Even if it's not the best picture, just something that gives you a good idea of what the question is asking and what numbers you're going to plug in and where. So with this question, we're going to say, the question reads, an oak tree is 3 meters tall, and a bird is standing on the ground 9 meters from that tree. If the bird flies directly to the top of the tree, how far will it fly? If necessary, we're going to round our answer to the nearest tenth. So looking at this, we can say, okay, this oak tree is 3 meters tall, and we're just going to label this. This is 3 meters. Now the bird is standing on the ground, and it is 9 meters from the base of that tree. Okay. Now we want to know if the bird flies directly from its spot on the ground to the top of the tree, how far is the bird going to fly? So we can see that we kind of have what looks to be our right angle here, which means that this side over here is going to be our C. And this side is going to be the side that we're trying to figure out. We want to know how far this bird's going to fly. So we're going to use our formula, a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. Okay, and I'm just going to use this side. We're going to call this side A, and we're going to call this side B. We're going to say 3 squared plus 9 squared is equal to c squared, or how far the bird flies. So 3 squared, or 3 times 3, is going to give us 9. 9 squared, or 9 times 9, is going to give us 81. And all of this is going to be equal to c squared. Okay, so now we can do 9 plus 9 or 9 plus 81 is going to give us 90. And this is equal to c squared. And it looks like we're almost finished, but we still have that c with that exponent. So in order to get c by itself, we have to do the inverse operation of squaring a number, which will be to find the square root of that number. And anything we do to one side of the equal sign, we have to do to the other. Now, you can also use estimation to estimate exactly where the square root of 90 is going to be. We know that the square root of 81 is 9, and we know that the square root of 100 is 10. So we could say that 90 is somewhere between 81 and 100. So we could say that the square root of 90 is going to be somewhere between 9 and 10. When we use our calculator and we find the square root of 90, we're going to get an answer of 9.4868. But in the instructions, and this decimal is going to be longer, but this is what we're going to be looking at for answering this question. In the instructions, it does say to round this number to the nearest tenth, which is going to be one place past the decimal. So we're looking at this 9.4. But we want to look at this number in the hundredths place to tell us, what are we going to do with that 4? Are we going to leave it alone, or are we going to raise it to 5? So if it's 5 or more, you're going to raise that number up. If it's 4 or less, we're going to let it rest. Okay, so since this 8 is 5 or more, we're going to take this 8 and we're going to round this 4 up to 5. We're going to say this final answer is going to be 9.5. So we're saying that the bird has to fly 9.5 meters to get from its ground position to the top of the tree. Now, you can also check your answer with this by saying, okay, the hypotenuse has to be the biggest side of the triangle. In this case, we were trying to find the hypotenuse of this triangle, so it has to be the biggest number. So looking at the other sides of the triangle, we have 3 and 9, and then our answer of 9.5, and 9.5 is the biggest side of this triangle. So we would say that we followed the steps, that we're on the right track, that, more than likely, we did all the steps correctly, and that this is correct. We did get the biggest side, which it is correct, okay? So we're saying that the bird has to fly 9.5 meters. Let's look at another example of a word problem using the Pythagorean theorem. So in this question, we're dealing with another tree, and now we have a flower, and we're dealing with a hummingbird, okay? So it says the hummingbird's nest is 30 feet high in a tree, and a flower is on the ground 16 feet away from the base of that tree. If the hummingbird were to fly to the flower, how far will the hummingbird need to fly to get from its nest to the flower? Okay. So we're saying that the hummingbird's nest is in this tree, and this tree is 30 feet high. So we're going to label this side as 30 feet. And then we know that the flower is 16 feet away from the base of the tree on the ground. So as we did in the last question, we can see that we have this right triangle starting to form. Okay. Now, we want to know if the bird is going to go from its nest to the flower, how far is it going to have to fly? Okay. Now, looking at this, we're saying that we can see that we have this right angle just about right here is where it forms. So we know that we're looking to find the hypotenuse of this triangle. So we're going to use the formula again. We're going to say a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. Now, in the last question, we labeled this side is A, and this side is B. So we're going to switch this. We're going to say that 30 is B and 16 is going to be A. Because it does not matter which one you use, you just have to use both of the numbers for A and B. So we're going to say A squared is 16 squared plus B squared is 30 squared. And then we're still trying to figure out what C squared is. So 16 squared, or 16 times 16, is going to give us an answer of 256. And 30 squared, 30 times 30, is going to give us 900. And all of this needs to be equal to c squared. When you add this up, 256 plus 900 is going to give us 1,156. Is equal to c squared. And now we need to get c totally by itself by finding the square root of both sides, taking that inverse operation. So we're going to find the square root of c squared and find the square root of 1,156. This will cancel out, leaving us with just c. And then the square root of 156, or 1,156, and I'll pull up my calculator for this. 1,156, and we are finding the square root of that number, which is going to be an answer of 34. Now, if you want to check your answer, you can also say, okay, so 34 times 34 is going to give us that number of 1,156. So we can say that in this case, the bird flying from the nest to the flower, the bird is going to fly a total of 34 feet. And if we want to check this, we can see that one side is 30, one side is 16, and then the side that we found is 34, and 34 is the biggest side, or the hypotenuse. Okay. Let's look at one more example of this. Now, in this next example, I don't have a picture drawn, but we're going to draw it together as we answer this question. It says Irma's house is due west of Salem and due south of Greenwood. So we're just going to start right here, and we're going to say this right here is going to be Irma's house. So this is the house. Then we're going to say Irma's house, and I'm going to draw a compass up here just to make sure that we follow the where it says west and south. So we know that this is north, this is south, this is east, and this is west. So when we look at this question, it says Irma's house is due west of Salem, which means that Salem is going to be over here, and then Irma's house is west of that point. Okay, so this is Salem. Okay, and notice too, this picture does not have to be anything fancy. It's just giving us an idea of what numbers we're going to put, where we're going to use the numbers, and what we're trying to solve for. And then it says, and if we delete this part, it says Irma's house is due south of Greenwood. So we're going to say that this is Greenwood, and if we go from Greenwood south, that's where we will get to Irma's house. So this is Greenwood. Okay, now we know looking at this, this looks like a triangle, but we're just going to connect these points right here. Okay, and now we have the triangle, but now we have to plug in our numbers. It says Salem is 15 miles from Irma's house. And then it says Salem, so if we delete this part, so we already figured out that Salem is 15 miles from Irma's house. We can say Salem is 17 miles from Greenwood. Okay. We want to know how far is Greenwood from Irma's house? So this is the side we're trying to find, not the hypotenuse in this case, because if we see we have our right angle here, we would say that the hypotenuse is actually from Greenwood to Salem, which is 17 miles. But we have all these numbers now that we can use to solve for how far away Greenwood is from Irma's house. We would write down our formula again, a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. And I'm gonna say that this side is a and this side is b. Say a squared plus 15 squared is equal to the hypotenuse of 17 squared. Okay, we're going to bring a squared down because we have not figured out what that is yet. 15 squared, 15 times 15 is 225. And then 17 squared, or 17 times 17, is going to give us 289. Now, when you have the equation like this, we're not going to add the numbers together. Instead, we're going to do the inverse. We have a positive 225, so we want to get this to the other side of the equal sign by subtracting it from both sides of the equal sign. This side will cancel for us, and then 289 minus 225 is going to give us an answer of 64. If we bring down a squared, we're almost finished, but we still have that exponent with a. So now we have to find the square root of both sides. Now we're going to take that inverse operation to get our final answer. So this is going to cancel for us, leaving us with just a. And the square root of 64, we know that the square root of 64 is going to be 8 because we know that 8 times 8 is going to give us 64. So we would say that a is equal to 8. What that means is that Greenwood is 8 miles from Irma's house.